Hi, Shane Bybee here with Bybee College Prep. I want to talk to you today about percentage problems on the SAT and the ACT and a problem that I see, or a mistake that I see a lot of students make. I did this video a couple of days ago and I made a mistake when I was doing the video. I want to fix that mistake because those drive me nuts. But the thing I want you to keep in mind is you're going to see 3 to 5 percentage problems, true, just percentage problems on the SAT and the ACT, not including other problems that are asking you to work with fractions and things like that. And that's really all a percentage is. It's a version of a fraction. There's a really common mistake that students make with a problem like this, though. They'll see 125% of something is 425. If that's true, what is 65% of that something? What a lot of students will decide to do is, what if I multiply then 425 times 0.25 and take whatever I get there, it's like 106 and some change, and I subtract that from 425. Well, the problem you have is twofold. One, the math, well, number one, that's wrong. It's the wrong way to do it. That'd be the biggest problem. The second problem is that you run into a difficulty with the multiple choice, because it's a multiple choice test. They're going to give you 5 or 4 right answers. ACT 5 answers, SAT 4 answers. It's got to be one of those, and it's not going to get crazy. Remember that these guys who are writing these test questions picked those particular numbers for a reason. There's something they wanted to do with those numbers. Now, the way your math teacher wants you to answer this question is your math teacher wants you to recognize that 125% is the same thing as 1.25. And if I set this up in a common equation, I'm going to get 1.25 of x equals 425. That's what that sentence says, right? 125% of x equals 425. Now all I have to do is solve for x, right? So I divide both sides by 1.25. When I do that, I'm going to figure out that that equals 340. Now all I have to do is say, okay, then 340 times 0.65 is going to be equal to 221. And when I look at my answer choices on this particular problem, sure enough, 221 is an answer choice. So that's a great way to do it. I want to show you why they chose the numbers that they did, or how the fact that they chose certain numbers can pay off for you. So again, we recognize that 125% is 1.25. You also might, if you're fraction-minded, recognize that 1.25 is the same thing as 5/4. So if I look at that without even getting into my calculator, if I realize how these fractions work together, I can notice that 425, that is 5/4 of x, is going to equal 425. The quick way, one very quick way to do this is to recognize that, okay, then I need to divide 425 by 5, which is going to be 85, and multiply that times 4. Guess what I get? 85 times 4, which isn't tough math to do, turns out to be 340 again. And then the problem is exactly the same. The mistake students make is that they assume that 125% of that number, 25% more of that number, is also 25% less, and it's not. The key concept we talk about is that 50% more equals 33% less. Now, just kind of let that set in for a minute, because I know right now you're thinking, wait, now that doesn't make any sense. That's not mathematical. And you're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense on the surface. But let's imagine that I have $100 and you have $150 because you're doing better than I am. If I have $100 and you have $150, then I have 2/3 the dollars you have. In other words, I have 33% less. But if I flip that around, if you have $150 and I have $100, then you have 3/2 the dollars that I have, or you have 50% more. It's the same amount, it's the same relationship. The key thing to remember is that 50% more is not 50% less. 25% more turns out to be about 20% less. Not even about, it is 20% less. And the fractions get wackier there. Get where you can recognize fractions quickly. Get very comfortable with fractions from about 1/10 or 10% up to 50%, and be able to convert them quickly to their decimals and their percentage amounts. And you'll be able to answer these questions and see these relationships. Again, these guys picking out the numbers for the test question, picked them out on purpose. They decided, I'm going to pick these particular numbers to get a particular answer. That's the important thing to recognize, and figuring out why they do it. Once you start doing that, once you start seeing that pattern, you'll get to where you can answer those questions very fast, very quickly, and you can get all of the questions answered inside the time period. That's a critical thing for getting a high score. Shane Bybee, Bybee College Prep. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, please like our Facebook page. If you have questions, post them on our Facebook page. If there's a problem you'd like me to show you how to solve, I'm about to do another video on a particular problem on a practice SAT. If there's a special problem you'd like me to show you how to solve, please let me know, and I'll look it up and I'll see what I can do about telling you how to solve it, maybe even a little bit more simply than you were told in the answer explanations in the book. Ask me any question you want to ask about the SAT or ACT, and if I don't know the answer, I'll go find it. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.